The next topic is Future Trends in Fundraising and Financial Innovation in Bharat by Srimati Sangeeta Shankaran Sumesh.
Namaste. I'm going to be talking about future trends in fundraising and financial innovations. And I'm going to intersperse my talk with learnings from our Hindu Dharma. Narad Rishi, he had a divine magical fruit which he gave to Lord Shiva and Parvati. Shiva and Parvati wanted to give it to one of their sons, the first one who could circle the world 3 times. Hearing this, Kartik hopped onto his peacock and off he went. Ganesh, on the other hand, knowing his limitations, decided to circle his parents 3 times because his parents meant the world to him. So what can we learn about this from a fundraising perspective? I call this the keys for fundraising. Pause and think. Are you raising funds for the sake of raising funds? Can you utilize the funds more effectively to scale your business? How can you effectively utilize your funds? So think about that. The second P is the perspective shift. Can you shift your perspective? Can you look at things from a different lens? Can you do things differently so that your business gains the most? The third P is to pivot on strengths. How can you leverage on your strengths so that whatever weaknesses that you have, you can cover them up and mitigate your risks? So those are the 3 Ps. Keep that in mind before you raise funds. Did you know machine automation and machine intelligence existed from the time of Mahabharata? I'm talking about the Sudarshan Chakra of Krishna. It could identify the target, destroy the target, and come back to its owner. So when you're talking about future trends in fundraising, automation is something that obviously excites investors, anything that's innovative in the space of automation, and that apart, what else do investors like? Renewable energy. It can be clean tech, climate tech, agri-tech. Those are potential areas that investors love to invest in. Let me give you examples from Bharat. 75F is a startup that's into smart building solutions, such as wireless sensors and proactive building automation. And then you have Ace Green, which is into recycling of batteries. Coimbatore-based biofuels, it segregates and from waste biomass and it converts to biofuels. A stands for automotive. In this day and age, automotive is synonymous with electric vehicles. And the example from Bharat I'd like to share is none other than Ola Electric, which is intelligent and sustainable electric vehicles. What is I? I is for innovation. Any sort of innovation that you can come up with in whatever domain that you're working in, that is something investors would get attracted towards. So the example here is Razorpay. I'm sure most of us here would have used it. It's an online payment gateway that is used in Bharat. S stands for your social impact. What sort of social impact can your business come up with? What sort of social impact is your startup into? Because social impact is something that's gaining a lot of importance these days. So the example I'd like to share is about a startup called Happy Hens. It is into organic, free-range egg suppliers in Bharat. The birds are not caged. They are allowed to roam around freely in the farms. E stands for your ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance. ESG is gaining a lot of traction, not just in the investment space, but even otherwise. Corporates also, like you may know, have to follow the ESG standards. And therefore, ESG is a high and upcoming area, has a lot of potential in the trends in fundraising. And the example I'd like to share from Bharat is about Trini, which is an ESG consulting and technology partner. They are into minimizing supply chain risks and building enterprise resilience. Samudra Manthan. Like we know when this was churned, what happened? What were the things that evolved? First came the poison, and then it was the gems, and then it was Dhanvantri, Kamadhenu, and so on. So similarly, the fundraising practices have been evolving. So what can we learn from them? We is your venture debt, which is nothing but a type of loan or debt financing, which is used to finance your working capital requirements, or it could be for purchasing capital expenses. So that is your venture debt. A is your alternative funding. That is nothing but the non-diluted funding. And here, you don't have to sell a portion of your company to get the money, and that's why it's known as an alternative funding. L is lot of investors, and that's nothing but your crowdsourcing. You have many people investing small amounts into taking it as your investment, which is nothing but your crowdsourcing. U is useful investing, which is your impact investing. Impact investing, again, is something very, very important. Of course, they look at financial returns. The investors look for financial returns. But that apart, what is more important is the kind of impact your startup can create. So that is your useful investing, and E is your early stage investing. Like the name says, it's at an early stage wherein it has limited revenue, small number of people working, and the products are just about evolving, and therefore, it could be quite risky. However, this might also be highly rewarding from an investor perspective. So that's on your evolving fundraising practices. Let's get back to Mahabharata. Duryodhan blindly followed Shakuni Mama, which led to his devastation. They looked only at a short-term perspective and did not have a long-term vision in mind, right? So similarly, if you want to come up with financial innovations, you need to have the long-term vision in mind. So what should you be doing? What are the focus areas? Focus on these 4 Ps. The first being people. And the example I'd like to share with you is the UPI, which has revolutionized the way the financial transactions are being made. I would also like to mention Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission, which is into promoting digital healthcare. The second P is on the planet. Green finance, green bonds, green loans, green banks. All of these are into financing projects that have a positive environmental impact. So if you're into any of these spaces, that is a good space to be in. And the largest green bond issuer, Bharat Green Co Group, they are into funding hydro, solar, and wind power projects. The third P is the product. IppoPay is a payment infrastructure company that's into collecting and disbursing payments for business. Similarly, another one is called Entitled, which is into financial wellness and financial inclusion for the low-income workers. Startups is not just about valuation, you also need to make money, so therefore generating your profits is also very important. And look at Jio, for instance. They have changed the way the digital penetration into rural India as well, and therefore focus on the profitability of your business as well. Now, I often get asked, how do I pitch? How do I make a good pitch? Apart from the elevator pitch that my co-panelists mentioned about, what else can be a good way to attract investment? Think about these 5 areas that you have to mention in your pitch deck. First, Ma Durga. What did she do? She slayed Mahishasura. Similarly, your business, what is the problem that it's solving? Mention about that in your pitch deck. I stands for your investment required. Vyasa had asked Ganesha to write the Mahabharata as he was dictating. Ganesha agreed, but he had a condition. He said, you must recite the verses non-stop, and then only I will be writing for you. Vyasa agreed, but he had a counter condition. He said, as you're writing, you must understand the meaning of it and then write. So you see what happens? He negotiated well and created a win-win strategy for both. So similarly, when it comes to your pitch deck, when you're talking about the investment that's required, create a win-win strategy for both you as well as your investor. Mention how effectively you're going to use the investment, the funds that are being raised. So talk about that. T is for your team. When we say Pandavas, you of course know who the team concept comprises, right? So similarly in your business, who are your co-founders? Who are the industry experts you deal with? Who are your board directors? Who are your mentors? Do you work with coaches? So on and so forth. So talk about the team that is part of your business. C stands for your customer acquisition strategy. Vishnu, when he dressed as Mohini, he lured his customers, lured the asuras. So in your business, how are you luring your customers? How are you going to acquire your customers? What is your go-to market strategy? So speak about all of these. And lastly is the H, which is your high-level numbers. Many times, many people tell me, oh, numbers, it's so confusing, finance is boring, challenging, not my cup of tea. It's like a chakra view. But my friends, if you need to be on top of the game in your business, you need to understand your numbers, you need to know the finance aspect of your business model, your revenue model, and so on. So therefore, you need to pay attention to that aspect as well. So that is the pitch, which is you need to cover in your presentation, in your pitch deck. So lastly, Visarjan, right? What happens? Visarjan signifies adaptability in anticipation of return next year. It reminds us that nothing is constant and also enables thriving of our economy in the form of pandals and related festivities when it comes to Ganesh Chaturthi. So similarly, if you were to ace in your space and ace in your game, what should you follow? Embrace adaptability, embrace change, and embrace economic growth so that you contribute to the growth of the country. So that is what I wanted to share with you. I'm reachable. My social media handles are the Gain Enabler. So happy to connect with you. I work on maximizing potential, performance, and profits, and those are my books. And since you've been an amazing audience, if you'd like to get free copies of my book, please get in touch with me. I'll share you a copy of my ebook. Thank you very much. Dhanyavad.
Okay, Prabhu, Gauranga Das ji.
Thank you very much, Ashish ji, for sharing your wonderful insights on the markets. One question is, from the ethical and the philosophical and cultural point of view, what are some of the significant 2-3 elements in Hindu culture or family traditions which you really feel have played a major role in transforming the way India operates in its business and governance?
Thank you, Prabhuji. I will ask Srimati Sangeeta to sort of answer that because she has invoked many of our stories. All of us will, of course, being Hindus, we will have our own views, but I'm sure we need to give her the first opportunity to answer.
Namaste, Swamiji. So that's a great question. I have never thought of it like that. But what comes to my mind is, I think, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. I think from a culture and Hindu Dharma perspective, if we stop thinking just about me and my family and have a larger vision and not have a selfish attitude, I think that would help. And I think ethics is something that needs to be integral to each of us. And therefore, if you follow that, and in your mind, because sometimes I have always found, there could be things that are gray. But the yardstick that I use is, if it's creating a doubt in you, then maybe there's a small element which is not related to the integrity factor. So if you're very clear, then you're sure that you're doing the right path. So that is your integrity. And like I said, if we look at the Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, I think that might help. That's what I say. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that aptly sums up. Who else?
Myself, Samir Panda.
Okay.
I am a WSC volunteer also. We have a company that's making tires with zero emissions, and it is world's first anti-puncture, anti-burst tire. I have a question for Sangeeta ma'am. You told about the green bond. So can you elucidate about it so that we can get the advantage of this kind of innovation?
Yes, so anything that creates a positive environmental impact, anything that is good for the environment, right? Because we need to conserve the environment as well. So any of these green things is what helps. So you have banks that finance green loans. There are green bonds that happen, right? So all these when you say green, then it's related to the environment. So any of those, I'm sure you can leverage on that. You need to talk to the banks and then mention about that. Yes.
Thank you. I think we have a gentleman here.